Don't say it.
I
Don't say
can't say
it.
it. No, but it's just, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Burn said something atrocious but hilarious right before this, so I can't repeat it because it's just foul.
Yeah, we'll definitely get demonetized, and we don't even make money. So
We'll do an unrated version after this. Don't worry about it. I think we should just do a whole episode of just complete unrated and just offensive humor. Just see how quickly we get canceled. Oh god,
no.
great times. Anyways, I hope everybody's having a good week. Entertainment was a little slow this month in May. There have been a couple movies, but I haven't gotten around to them. Mainly the Hatchling I want to see, and then Men.
Oh no.
Both look equally horrifying. One's more sci-fi monster horror, and then the other one's just psychological supernatural horror. So I'm gonna wait, but
Yeah, that one looks creepy. I know that comes out this week, and I think that Chip and Dale movie on Disney Plus is also coming out. And
It's like,
apparently
wow.
that's really good. I'm
like
seeing
such
reviews
a-
for it. Like what?
Such a gap in movies. One's like super dark and adult, and the other one's just adorable and hilarious. Like
I guess there's something for everybody.
Let's get down to brass tacks here. So, Bern and I finally had a free month trial for Paramount Plus due to our thing with Xbox and the Game Pass, which is awesome. So anybody who has Xbox, utilize that before the 23rd. At least for us, it was until the 23rd. And we finally got to watch Paramount Plus's Halo, starring Pablo Schreiber and a couple other actors and stuff. I don't remember all their names, to be honest, because most of them are decently unknown for the most part. Like, I haven't seen them
For the most part, yeah.
which actually I think that's one of the good things about it, is that it's kind of better they don't have super famous people for this. So, I kind of got that vibe. But overall, it was a solid show. I will say, I think being a sci-fi show with Halo as the name isn't a great thing for this, if that makes sense. Like, how do I put this? That like it's because it's tied to such a prestigious and like such a big pop culture item. It's almost like it can almost be destined to fail if it doesn't live up to the expectations of both fans and maybe even the critics and stuff. So overall, I thought it was solid though. What'd you think, Bern?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it's a pretty solid show overall. I know I haven't been watching it week to week, but I've been keeping up with like the discourse that's been surrounding the show, and it seems like it's getting a lot of vitriolic pushback from a lot of the diehard fans of Halo. And I mean, to be honest, I can see why. I mean, they definitely make a lot of creative choices here that absolutely separate it from the games. So this is and then the creators behind the show have said that this isn't a one-to-one adaptation of the games and the novels or anything like that. This is sort of its own Elseworld universe take on Halo, and to that extent, I find that a little bit better than actually trying to to adapt the games and the books and failing at that. I would rather them try something a little bit different and doing something different with the format of TV. So on that end, I think they succeeded in some aspects and they failed in other aspects. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag of a show. But if I'm taking the show on its own terms, I enjoyed it a lot more than I didn't. That's definitely for sure. There was a lot of things I did find intriguing in the show, and of course there are things that I didn't feel completely worked for me. But I mean, we can get into those when we get into specifics. But yeah, overall, I did have a good time with the show.
I'm gonna kind of flip it, the whole doing their own thing. I am more than welcome to, like, I understand why people do adapt certain characters and storylines and franchise and stuff, which makes sense because it's like, why do a carbon copy or just a complete ripoff? Because then there's no real point to that. I could watch the game footage for the games if I want to on YouTube or something. But
yeah, why remake the first game when I could just play it right now?
Exactly. I think it could have. I will say I think it could have borrowed more from at least the video games, just because that's what I'm familiar with. I know there's a whole line of books and maybe even comics to it as well, but that's a whole other can of worms. I'm like, man, I don't know if that's even worth. I mean, it should. I think they could have taken a little more inspiration from that stuff. In all honesty, just to kind of help it feel a little more like Halo. But other than that, again, everybody has to try something different. They did. Does it work all the time? No, not at all. But there's some good aspects to it, and there are a couple episodes I'm like, this is feels like Halo that separates itself from the rest of the sci-fi community. Having said that, I will give this show a 3 out of 5, just because, like I said, I think Pablo Schreiber was a great Master Chief. The suit looked amazing. I think it was a perfect adaptation of several of the famous Mjolnir armors he wore throughout the games. Solid action here and there. Budget was pretty good too, but it's just the cast. There were plenty of people I thought that were miscast for the show, and then the
Yeah.
budget was also like its downfall. There were plenty of moments I thought, for such an expensive show, like compared to like The Mandalorian and other stuff, which is decently expensive, this did not feel like that budget. So that's my opinion on that.
Right, yeah, the effects work and all that stuff were a little bit inconsistent. There were some parts where it looked really good. I'm like, oh man, like this is pretty awesome for a show. And then yeah, other times where you're like, okay, you can tell that this was this was made for TV and didn't have that much of a budget. But yeah, I think the real big standouts for me are Pablo Schreiber as Master Chief. I know as contentious as this take of the character is, with a lot of diehard fans, I did really like his characterization of the Master Chief. I think it added an element that we needed for at least a TV show. A medium that is more passive than a video game where you can actually play the character and like you can put your own and you put yourself into the shoes of the character that you're playing as in the game. So that's a little bit of a cheat that the games do have over a lot of other mediums, is that it's interactive. So, having the exact one for one adaptation of the Master Chief character from game to TV wouldn't really work too well. So I really did like what he did with the character. For the most part. And the other big standout for me was Natasha Micklehone, Catherine Halsey in the show. I think she knocked it out of the park. I think out of all the things that they did adapt from the games, she was probably the absolute best thing for me that they adapted into this show. So I really did like her in it. But yeah, the overall, the overall like sci-fi story behind this all, like the diving into the UNSC and that storyline and how they sort of muddy the waters in terms of like, good and bad, I found really intriguing. So, there was a lot of cool things that they decided to work with. It's just a lot of the side plots in the show felt like it dragged it down, and also once we got to the end of the show, it feels like it was almost useless. A lot of the side plots. So, yeah, overall, a mixed bag of a show. But again, like I said, I found more enjoyment than I did not. So I will give this a 3 out of 5. Also.
Good stuff. Good stuff. But guys, since we did watch this season, we are going to do a spoiler session. Also, I forgot to mention, as always, don't forget to give us a like, ring the bell, share us around. And for those of you who aren't subscribed, check us out. We got videos coming out every week. So, keep following our journey into entertainment, especially this year, because this summer is going to be a pretty stacked summer. So, shall we get into it, Bern?
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Last non-spoiler thing I'll say is you and I were discussing it a little bit before this, but in terms of if this show was the only reason to get Paramount Plus, I would say no. I would say that if you're only interested in this thing, maybe go ahead and do like a 7-day free subscription and binge it all. All the episodes are out, so you guys can definitely do that if you have any interest at all. But I would say that this isn't necessarily a subscription seller of a show. I mean, you might come into Paramount Plus for this, and there's a lot of other cool things on there, like a lot of the Star Trek shows are on there, and there's like other movies and stuff. So maybe stay for that content. But I wouldn't say this is the show, like a must watch show. Subscribe now to Paramount Plus.
No, it's not like a Mandalorian or Game of Thrones kind of show where you get HBO or you get Disney Plus for that. This is only if you really, really, really want to watch it. Only if maybe you're a true fan of Halo. Even then, you may be a little disappointed. But let's dive into spoilers. So if you guys haven't checked the show out, you could stick around, see if you like it, and maybe you want to check it out. If not, come on back after you watch it, see what you think. But let's get started. I want to start with the negatives first, just because I only have a couple like main things to really deal with, or at least a few. The first one, it was just the whole miscast. I think Kwan Ha, as good as an actor as that, let me see what her name was. I'm sorry. I think it was Yurin Ha. It's actually funny. Her last name is actually last name in the character. But I liked her. I'm like, you know what? I want to see her in more stuff. However, it just felt so out of place that she was supposed to be like a 16-year-old girl. Because I'm like, you definitely are not 16. And
No.
even then, she played it off like too. There are plenty of moments in this show. I'm like, why is your character so dumb? Like, this is just like. I mean, I guess it's trying to show the ignorance because of her people being like like the people of Madrigal, the planet she's on, how they're just like outsiders of the UNSC, and they just don't want anything to do with that. I guess it's kind of play on that, but they played her off just so dumb and so annoying. It was kind of hard to get through the parts with her a little bit. I don't know how you felt. I could just be too harsh on it, but that was my gripe with it.
No, I mean, I think where they started in with the character was interesting. Giving us sort of a look into a lot of this certain faction that is operating outside of UNSC. That's one of the things that the games themselves never really delved into, was a lot of these different colonies and different planets and how they're reacting to this human covenant war. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that they put into the show, but as it progressed, it felt kind of needless, and that was kind of a detriment to Kwan Ha's character, because on the surface, that the premise of the character is interesting. The person who wants to take back their home and lead and lead the fight, basically. So it's one of those things that we've seen before, in terms of like a character like Stereotype, of the one that has to like come back and relieve their planet and take their place as the leader. So that's a cool premise for her. It's just like you said, the actress does feel a little bit miscast, or the writing wasn't necessarily the best for her, because like you said, they write the character and they treat the character like she's a 16-year-old, very very like ignorant and very just like wide-eyed and not fully understanding a lot of the intricacies of like in the dealings that are going on in this war, right? So yeah, it makes her come off as like bratty and annoying and sort of just like in over her head. So it doesn't really help with the character like being written like a 16-year-old, but not looking like a 16-year-old, right? Like she looks like what she is in like her mid-20s. So for her to act the way that she does, it feels off, and it just, like I said, it really drags that character down, unfortunately. I mean, no discredit to the actors. I mean, she's doing what's on the page, and I'm pretty sure she does a really good job. Again, there's certainly moments where her acting does shine through. It's just yeah, the writing really lets her character and that storyline with Kwan Ha and Soren down.
Yeah, that was that, and then Miranda Keyes was another one that was kind of like, I don't know if
Yeah.
I you know what, maybe it's not so much miscasting but just bad writing for the side characters, like her, she just played off way too naive for being a military scientist, like not like she kind of knew stuff but she really didn't want to know, or was completely out of the dark. But it's like, how do you not have a gut feeling on what's going on, especially when she sees the Spartans? How do you not get something's off with them? um I just felt like there were plenty of moments for her that she just came off just super, kind of like you said, wide-eyed, like Kwan. It's like, ugh, it didn't do justice for the character nor the story, in my opinion.
I didn't have any issues with the way she was written. I thought like her character was written at least pretty interesting. I think in that case, with the Miranda Keyes character, the actress Olive Gray, I don't think she did that great of a job. To be honest, there's a scene in the last episode where she's yelling at the dying clone
Yeah.
of Halsey, and she's like, "What did you do to my mother? Where
Where
is
is
she?"
she?
And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's like no emotion there. So
She's
I was
not
like,
even
ah.
pissed. She's not anything. Just, it's almost like a bad Batman thing. Just, where is he?
Yeah, so I mean, I've had like minor issues here and there. There are certainly moments where she does do a good job. A lot of the moments with her and her dad, I think, are really effective. But again, throughout the whole show, for the most part, and then yeah, that last scene really cemented it for me with that I don't think she is necessarily the best for this role. I mean, my opinion might change. Maybe she might do a great job in season 2. I don't know, but as far as it goes now, she wasn't my favorite.
Yeah. Let me see. What's another like thing? I mean, besides them two, everybody was pretty solid. Just the budget in some episodes and some moments, I thought, ugh, this is a little too, well, like a little too CGI for its own I mean, again, Paramount, it's a big name, but I guess when you think of like Disney and Marvel and stuff now, or even something like HBO, like where it's like quality content, I kind of was hoping for a little bit more for it. Other like for just for a few like scenery and then the alien shots. The aliens, most of them looked pretty fake.
They look like effects.
Yeah, they looked like way too FXy, which I mean, again, it's hard. You know, it is like you said, it is a made for TV show. But I think they've just kind of done a little bit better. Maybe put a little more into that just to kind of give that feeling of it. But you know, I'm not a producer or director, so that's as far as my ignorance will go.
Yeah, it could have been one of those things where maybe going practical would have benefited it a little bit better. That's actually one of the things that I really enjoyed about the Spartans. I was a little wary at first, after the first episode with their suits being practical and the action sequence in the first episode they looked kind of stiff and clunky. I remember talking to you about that, but actually as the series went on and in the big action sequences in episode 5 and the final episode, they looked really good and they moved really good too. So I guess they kind of figured that out in between shooting the pilot and then doing the rest of the series. So that aspect I did really enjoy. So maybe they should have taken that and done that also with the Covenant, maybe having a little bit more practical effects on that end, because yeah, that CGI does take up a lot of the budget, and you can definitely tell where at points where you can see that a lot of the money went into it and a lot of it didn't. So that's kind of one of those things where, like, yeah, like you said, it's a little bit of a roller coaster where you're like, oh, that looks cool, oh, that doesn't look that great, and it sort of takes you out of it, and that's kind of unfortunate. So maybe in season 2 they can kind of lean into the practicality a little bit more, have people in suits, and then yeah, for the action sequences maybe utilize an effect to sell the action a little bit more, because yeah, you can't have people running around in those clunky suits for the most part, at least for the Covenant aliens.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, it would me just being nitpicky. Like, I didn't care for how Silver Team looked like super bland for being Silver Team. Given, I guess I'm still on the idea of one of my favorite things was Halo 5, where you got to see blue team,
Blue
like
team.
his original Spartans that he's fought with for years, are known for years, and then you see John Locke's team. I forgot what they were called, but his more advanced
Oh,
Spartans and
Osiris.
stuff. Yeah, called Fire Team Osiris. You got to see them too, and they're more modernized stuff. I like the idea that these generations of Spartans are much more unique. But then it's also, I thought, you know what, there have been plenty of game footage too where Master Chief was just, his armor set was everywhere too. So, it's just me being nitpicky. But other than that, I'm down to get in the positives. Did you have any negatives you wanted to go over real quick, or?
Yeah, just the last bit of nitpicks. There were some creative choices that I didn't really dig too much. A lot of with the like the inside helmet face cams, kind of like the Iron Man cams. That
Oh,
part I felt like I didn't really enjoy too much. It kind of like took me out of it. And a lot of the first person action sequence sections I didn't really enjoy. I know like it was one of those like fan servicey moments, and it definitely came across that way to me, at least, because when it went into those things, it kind of pulled me out of the action sequence as a whole. Where I do really like when the camera pulls back for at least for movies and TV. I do like it when the camera pulls back and we get to see the full depth of the action. I feel like kind of like took me out of the sequences whenever it would go into first person, and obviously the effects didn't really help when they would go into those sections. So yeah, those couple things really took me out of it. I know, again, maybe fans of the game really do enjoy it. So maybe that was for them, and if they did, cool, then that worked for them. But for me, it didn't really come across too great. And the last thing I didn't really enjoy was the chief and Makee relationship. Not the relationship itself. That I can kind of buy as these two like star-crossed lovers type thing. I know, definitely like a sci-fi trope that we've seen before, but it really felt kind of truncated where we got the beginning and the end of that relationship in the span of basically 3 episodes. So I felt like maybe if they would that had established that maybe since like episode 2, they could have had that that turn, at least be a little bit more believable. But as it stands now, it definitely feels rushed to me, at least.
I could see that. It was definitely one of those things that was kind of shoehorned into the story, and that's the one thing that has really pissed off a lot of fans. That
Yeah.
Master Chief gets laid. He's not supposed to get laid. It's like, hate to say it, man. It's real life. Maybe he has to get a little something something for himself. He's got.
Let the man get it on. Gosh, why is everybody trying to not let other people have fun?
He got his cake and it was delicious. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm gonna start the hashtag Let Master Chief fuck. Just let him. He's been through a lot, okay, guys?
Next day, holy shit, Burn, you trending. It's like, I started this. Oh, man. But let's get into the positives, shall we? Hate to say I only have a few positives for this show. Not in a bad way, but it's like, not a whole lot to really like, at least for me to like, so. I think the dogs agree with me, Burn. They also.
Man, I don't think they have positives.
They're like, you know what? Get on with it. I'm like, you know what, puppies, you're right. Okay. My first positive for this one, I mean, the main one for me was just Pablo Schreiber as Master Chief. I think that's one of the stronger casting choices for him. Given this is a very different Master Chief, like that we expect from the games. But then people have to remember, we were Master Chief in the game, so there has to be a physical person for that. And even then, he's not the Mandalorian. He's not Boba Fett. He's not any of those Star Wars characters that we have to have the helmet on him all the time. That took a little bit for me to get used to, but then the more I saw his face, I was like, you know what? I can get behind this. I think that's just the marketing and the writing. Like, you know what? We're going to shove him in your face and you're going to love it. And I was like, yep, you're right. I do love it.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add on to that. There is no good reason for him not take his helmet off, beside the fact that he just did it in the games, which he did. There are parts in the games where he does take off his helmet at the end of the first game, at the end of the legendary ending of the fourth game. So there are moments where Master Chief does take his helmet off. Okay, like he takes his helmet off, but it's just we as the players don't see it because it helps us to put ourselves into the shoes of the main character. The less they do, the more that we impart ourselves onto them, which is why a lot of characters like Mario, Link, Master Chief, why we like those characters so much, because essentially they're just us. We impart ourselves onto them. But again, for a TV show or a movie, that's not going to work too much. And the Mandalorian had a good reason for the character to keep his helmet on, being a religious zealot for that Mandalorian group that he was with. And with Master Chief's case, there is no story reason for him not to have it. So I don't have an issue with it. As a fan of the games, I can totally accept it on its own.
Exactly. And his suit, again, just spot on. I really grew to love this suit ever since the early marketing, where it's that first commercial of him putting on the helmet and then just, hello, Master Chief. I was like, yep, that looks awesome. I am on board with it. So his suit was solid. Again, me being nitpicky, I always envisioned him as just being like a bald dude, like completely clean shaven, like an alien. So that was a little bit like, damn it, Master Chief with hair, this is interesting. But again, got over it. That's just me being nitpicky. And then, like you mentioned earlier, I think the characterization of the Halsey and the UNSC, I think that was really well done. She came off way more of a villain than she actually is in the games, because in the games, if you really think about it, she's also a monster too. But but playing the game, I don't really think about it as much, but the show really put into perspective, like, this woman took John and the other Spartans from their families, erased their memories, swapped them out for clones that their parents thought died in front of them, which is horrible. And then but it's all in the name of progress and the future of humanity. Like, where do you draw the line? That was the whole question of, like, we can keep improving ourselves, but at what cost? And she, what was the actor's name for Halsey again? You said earlier?
Her name is Natasha McElhone.
I think she was amazing as like a younger Halsey, because we're used to seeing her as like an older,
bit older,
like at the end of her career essentially. But I thought, she was not only beautiful but very calculating and cold. Just became such a great villain, especially by episodes 8 and 9. Like, wow, we are really seeing you for the monster you are. And then the UNSC, like, it wasn't as good as we're used to in the games and stuff, where, oh yeah, we're fighting the greater good against the Covenant are true enemies. It's like, Nah, both sides are pretty horrible. So let's get that out of the way right now. Making the Halo verse a much more gray area, I think, was definitely a good liberty to take for sure.
Yeah, definitely, because that's something again they don't really interrogate too much in the games. I mean, they do mention a lot of the things that that Halsey does, but they don't really lean too much into like how how screwed up a lot of that actually is. You know, she did in fact kidnap a bunch of children, and either through different experiments, especially with the Spartan ones that were all almost complete failures. Like those children all died, and they even mentioned in the show here where they kidnap at least 100 kids and only like 30 of them are actually active Spartans, which is a nice little Easter egg. I'm very curious to see if we'll meet any of those other Spartans that actually succeeded in the show. So that would be actually pretty cool. But yeah, like adding like just that really leaning into the monstrosity of her characters, and yeah, like you said, that she's a futurist. She's willing to for her the ends definitely do justify the means, no matter how cruel those means are. And so for that the character to be like that, I thought was really interesting, and again the actress played that off really really well. And yeah, they're just the overall characterization of the UNSC. They're kind of desperate. They're willing to commit war crimes to win this fight against an enemy that they really don't know too much about. And again, that adds a really interesting element into this fight, which in the games we just we're part of the good guys. We're the humans. We're gonna fight off the Covenant. And it's gonna be awesome, and badass, and stuff. And here it's a little bit more like there are certain things where we gotta decide what lines we're willing to cross to win this war potentially. So yeah, like you said, it's a really cool story element that they added to this game. Like I'm sure maybe they expanded it in the books at some point, possibly. I don't really know. I haven't read any of the books. My only point of reference is the games. So, and then I know in the games they don't really dig too much deep into that.
Yeah, like I said, I really like what they did with that, and I really like that they brought the actual actor for Cortana into the game too. I know that was a big criticism, but I disagree. I really grew to like Cortana in this one, where the way I like to think of this show is that it is it's an origin story for everything, kind of like what just came
It feels
out?
to me like a lot of the first season of The Witcher, where it's a lot of setup to what we know in the books and in the games of that series. This one definitely feels like a prequel to at least Halo Reach, I would say, because I'm assuming in the next season we're going to get the fall of Reach at some point. So yeah, it definitely sets the table up, for all that stuff to come. Reach, Halo, Combat Evolved, and then the games that come after.
Yeah, and I think that would be the smartest way to go, would be just to really expand on that. But like I said, Cortana, she was an early version of Cortana, the first one to truly bond with Chief. And instead of being a little chip in his suit, she was integrated into him. Like Halsey really engineered her to like, no, you're gonna take over his body if I want you to, and you will be the weapon. It's like, wow. So you just want to just eliminate humanity, but not eliminate humanity in a way. It was really fucked up. But I like that this Cortana became the Cortana we know and care about, where she does care about John, and she's like, I can't do that. No, like I'm gonna help you through this. And it's like, yes, I love it. And I guess the last thing I will say is just my, at least my, I think I'm just gonna finish off my favorite episodes, which were, I think 8 and 9, just because all the action really built up beautifully to this, where Silver Team turned on John and Kai, and then they go to that Covenant little planet or something like that, and then just with him, just that line of just Silver Team on me, and they jump and fall. I was like, this is badass as shit. Yeah, just overall, it was a very solid ending for a muddied show.
Yeah.
But what else did you like about this burn before we kind of finish up?
Yeah, I mean they really did manage to, for me at least, end on a really good note where they tied up at least the two, or the central storyline of the UNSC, and the Silver Team, yeah, the Silver Team storyline, and the what them dealing with the Covenant, like John, Makee, and those the prophets. I thought they, and the artifacts, that storyline, I thought they did really, really well, and they managed to ratchet up the tension pretty good. I mean, the whole Halsey and her coup basically with the other two members of Silver Team, Vanek and Riz, and them fighting John and Kai, who they both sort of a little bit more human than the other two, which is why I did really like their designs. Because Master Chief is sort of gaining his humanity as the episodes go on. So he looks a little bit different than the other three design wise, and then we get to see Kai start to rediscover her humanity, which I really did enjoy her and her storyline. So yeah, like the way that they characterize the other two at least is like what you would want, or at least what Halsey thinks of Sparks, just walking weapons, and sort of them trying to regain their humanity. I really did like that aspect, and then yeah, just the action with them was really cool at the end there. So yeah, I think they really did end on a high note, and yeah, the relationship that they start to. I think they could have done it a little bit better, but I did like what they did with between Chief and Cortana, where once she gets implanted into his brain, like he's very rejectful of her. Like he doesn't want her input. He tells her to be quiet. Like he doesn't really like that she's in there to begin with. But by the end of the season, they seem to have formed at least a little bit of a bond once Cortana goes against Halsey's claims, not her claims, her demands, and she turns against her basically and allows John to survive to the end of the show, at least in some form. But yeah, just their relationship once that built up towards that final fight there was really cool. And again, it's probably setting us up to get a little bit more of what we know from the Halo games that we've gotten, where they're a team, and they develop a really really close relationship. So the way they set that up here, I did really enjoy.
Yeah, I will say that I think the things I want for the show going forward is just, like I said, just take a little more from the games. Like we can get the Fall of Reach. I would love to see the Flood in this show, and just more unique Spartans. I think that will definitely help benefit this show a little bit because it is about the Spartans and Master Chief and like what he goes through on fighting for the UNSC. So for me at least, that would definitely make it a lot more enjoyable, and I would definitely look more forward to watching it. But as of now, am I eager for Halo Season 2? I'm like, if it comes out, it comes out. I'll try and check it out again. But I don't think it's great that we have to pay for Paramount Plus like for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe once they start adding a bunch of more content to that platform. I know it's relatively new to the game, so there's still time for them to add some more, shows to that, that platform specifically. So, as much as I don't think this, show so far is a subscription seller, maybe it is at least a little bit of a gateway to other things people might enjoy, and for that it's pretty cool. I would say this season definitely reminded me of the first season of Witcher, where it was a lot of setup and messy setup to that. But I think the second season really did a better job of tightening up those storylines and giving the people what they wanted for the most part in that second season. So I'm hopeful that that's the case for this show, because if they can really nail it like they did in the sections that they did great in this season, if they can sort of take the good parts of that and just make that the main focus of season 2, I think that we'll have a really good show on our hands, and one that I would say would be worthy of subscription.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to add, Bern, or shall we wrap it up, my friend?
Nah, I mean, I think that's all I got to say about it. Overall, cool show. Could have been better for sure, but it is not the dumpster fire that a lot of people are characterizing out to be.
It's like it's almost like a little garbage fire. Like you lit something and you just throw it away in the garbage, and it's just you're watching that fire burn. But it's not a dumpster fire. It's a solid show. It's a rough first season. Definitely one of the roughest premiere seasons I've seen for a show in a while. But other than that, at least it found its way in the end. Hopefully we'll get a better season and seasons going forward. But yeah, guys.
Not the worst video game adaptation. Definitely not. We've gotten so much worse.
At least it's a show and not a movie. If it was a movie, that would make it I think that makes it worse than a show. At least a show has time to like catch itself, and that's exactly what this one did with the last 2 episodes. Like, okay, we kind of realized these storylines were whatever, we fixed it, so this is what it's like finally finish off with. It was like, okay, good, let's see what else it is. But
yeah, it leaves with some good potential.
Exactly. But yeah, like I said, guys, if you saw the show or what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Have you seen it? Are you interested in watching it? Any questions you have that we didn't answer? Let us know. We'll get back to you guys on that. And stay tuned. We got Top Gun Maverick coming out next week, along with Obi-Wan, and then Jurassic World Dominion. Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV is coming out, which I will talk about a little bit. And just a whole slew of entertainment. So, guys, we will sit back, relax, and The Boys is coming out soon too. So, again, whole crap load of content. We got much more videos coming out for you guys. So, as always, stay bodacious and keep on ranting.
Yeah, everybody, be good, be safe, and let's all enjoy some content because we're so spoiled. So we'll definitely be talking about it, and yeah, until then, we will see you guys on the next one.